I was 19 at the time, and I was home visiting my parents and grandmother on Christmas break from college. A little inside on my parents and grandmother's house. That is, it is two-story home, and it is abnormally old for a house, maybe around 15 years old at this time. I don't know of any dark history at all, other than my grandfather passing away in my grandmother's room back in 99 with lung cancer. It wasn't a surprise. The hospital let him go home to die in peace. We all knew it was coming. He had a great life, so nothing sinister that I know of. Anyway, my parents, sister, and my grandmother were all out doing something. So they asked me to stay at the house to feed the dogs. My grandmother has like 10 dogs because after my grandfather passed, all she really did is to try to fill a void, which is understandable in a way, but seriously, she has way too many dogs. I agreed and stayed at the house for them. I'm a homebody anyway and don't really like being around crowd. So I kind of look forward to being alone by myself with a satellite TV. My grandmother and my room were on the same floor, while my parents and my sister's room were upstairs on the second floor. My sister was 15 at this point, but she had this pink star-shaped doorbell on the outside of her door that has been since she was a kid. Been about an hour at this point since I have been alone. I was watching some documentary on this history channel when I heard stomping coming from upstairs. Now, I've heard some footsteps upstairs before when I was home alone, and even with my friends over. Yeah, kinda creepy, but I was kind of used to it by now. From where I was sitting, I can see the entrance to the stairs to the right. I didn't really pay any attention to it, so I continued watching TV. It was probably around 10 minutes ago since I heard the footsteps, when I heard the little doorbell go off twice in a row upstairs on my sister's door. Every hair on my body stood up. I muted the TV and listened for about a minute. Nothing happened. I told myself that the thing is little old and might have some faulty wiring. Right before when I turned up the volume again, it went off again, only once this time, like it was messing with me. I stayed at the stairs almost expecting someone to come down and laugh and say it was a joke, but nothing. I went up the stairs and looked up the stairway leading into pitch blackness. I was scared to turn on the light and humiliate someone standing at the top of the stairs next to my sister's room, but I turned on the light anyway, and there was nothing. I went up the stairs and turned on all the lights and went up to my sister's door and pressed the doorbell button. It worked normal, and there wasn't any problem that I could see on it, and took out all the batteries and put them in my pocket, leaving the batteryless doorbell on the bed. I turned around and started walking out of the room, when as I got to the door, the doorbell went off again. Chills instantly went down my spine, and I felt a presence I've never felt in that house before. I went downstairs trying not to freak out, and felt the battery moving around in my pocket. It went off again several times in a row. I thought that maybe if I ignore, it will go away. So I thought I would watch something cheery. I found a SpongeBob marathon. It has been probably around an hour since the doorbell incident, and I have nearly forgotten about the whole thing, when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a black mass in the shape of a huge dog. Now, my grandmother only owned Shih Tzu and Chow Chow, so there isn't anyone taller than my knee in the house. But this black transparent mass was huge, like a big wolf. It went from hallway behind the couch, then sprinting out the back door, causing the big heavy back door to fly open and slam into the wall. I jumped so high out of the chair, and every dog in the house was flipping, not like the annoying barking they do when someone strange is around, but more like they were terrified. I jumped up and ran outside to try to see this mass, but only catching the end of it running into our workshop. We had a motion light out there, and I triggered the light on in front of the shop. The shop was obviously not in use, so the light inside was off, and all you can see from the outside is the door slightly open, but nothing but darkness from inside. After this thing ran inside the shop, it turned around and stared at me through the slightly open door. Now this is what gave me nightmare for a long time. When it stared at me, it had a yellow, glowing eyes. This stopped me dead in my tracks. I no longer wanted to pursue this thing. I called a friend to let them know what happened and talked to them until my family came home. I haven't really told my family what happened that night because I didn't want to freak them out or have them telling me I'm crazy. I'm a pretty logical guy who doesn't really believe in paranormal things. So, just for some background, I have lived out in the country almost my entire life. I haven't lived in a real neighborhood since I was about 7. So, when I moved smack in the middle of the town, you can guess my feelings. Constant cars, noises, and people, even though I live in a fairly small town. My mom has to have 2 jobs, so I'm usually left home alone to take care of my little brother. Although sometimes he goes to his dad's house, which leaves me completely alone. One night, at about 9 or so, I was in the living room watching Scooby-Doo when I heard a loud yell coming from outside. It scared the crap out of me, so I ran to my room, locked the door. My heart was pounding, and I had a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. I heard my windows blind shuffle, and I looked over to see them moving. I remember that I had opened my windows to let some fresh air in, since I don't have any AC unit in my room. I lifted the blinds to close the window, and to my surprise, there was no breeze. It was completely still and eerily quiet. I made the mistake of looking up at the house directly in front of her. There was a dark figure just standing there. I couldn't make out any facial feature. I didn't really give myself much time to focus on it. I closed my window and made sure it was locked before I put the blinds down. I crawled back into my bed. I was shaking with fear, tears almost starting to form. It's probably some lady that lives there, is what I kept telling myself. Somehow I managed to fall asleep, and I was woken up by my mom calling me to tell me that she had left work. This is a true story. I was what you can call a latchkey kid. That means both of my parents worked. So I took a bus to and from school and used a key to get into my home when I was about 6 since no one was at home. I'm an only child, so I spent a couple of hours each day all alone. When I was about 9 years old, my parents moved into a new house in an upper middle class neighborhood. The type of neighborhood no one really expect to have anything bad happen. We lived in a suburban in Utah. Being home was about uneventful for about 8 years, other than the occasional salesperson that knocked on our door, which scared the crap out of me since I was taught strangers are danger. In 2012, when I was 17, my parents decided they wanted to spend a weekend in Wendover. They like to go and gamble. It's only about 1 hour from where we live. They left me home alone from Friday night until Sunday morning. A lot of 17 years old would have friends over and dipped into their parents' alcohol supply. I wasn't the party type, but I did try to get my friends to come over. I guess they had something more fun to do because I ended up playing video games for the whole weekend. I was an athletic in high school and couldn't justify being a couch potato the whole weekend. So I decided I better go for a short jog on Friday evening before I continue my video game binge. It was about 8:45 p.m. and the sun was going down. As I left my house, I noticed an old beat-up Honda Civic car parked out front. They were looking at me. I didn't recognize the 3 guys they were sitting inside, but I didn't think much of it. By the time I got home few hours later, the car was gone. I went inside and grabbed some water and went to play GTA 5. About 1 a.m. I decided I would turn in. My golden retriever and I curled up on my bed. After a few minutes I heard 4 loud thuds. My dog was acting anxious, which wasn't out of the ordinary. I was annoyed as I figured it was my friends that had been ignoring me all weekend, slamming their car doors across the street. I went to look out my window, figuring I would see them getting out of the car and joining the girls. I didn't see them, but I saw the Honda Civic car again. It was little unnerved, but decided to go back to my room. My dog was acting more intense than usual at this point. That's when I heard few more loud thuds. My dog hair stood on end and she gave a low growl. I had never seen her do that before. I was getting spooked. I grew up with shooting guns and I knew where my dad kept them. I grabbed my dad's semi-auto 12 shotgun. I wasn't sure what was going on. I decided I would sweep the house and see it was a burglar. I didn't want to call the cops just because I heard noise. I went from the second floor down into the basement. I heard and saw nothing. I looked out the window and the Civic car was gone. Tense, I went back to my bed and eventually fall asleep. When my parents came back Sunday morning, they gave me some chores to do in the backyard. I was pulling weeds and my dad was sweeping the steps of a basement entry door. He called my name loudly and I ran to find what he was yelling about. There were boot prints imprinted on the door like someone was trying to kick it in. He said, "You and your friends have been screwing around right here?" My blood went cold. I realized that was a noise I heard 2 nights ago. Someone had tried to break in with me inside the house. I suspect it was a dude in the Civic. What makes it scary was that they knew I was inside, as they watched me enter and leave when I went for the run. I'm scared to think of what their intention would have been, since they knew I wasn't there. But I'm grateful my instinct too. All my dad said was, "Good thing we reinforced the door, huh?" A few days later, I talked to my Boy Scout leader, who lived a couple doors down. He had a daughter who was an only child as well. He let me know that while she was home alone the same week, she had called him freaking out, saying someone had broken into their house. She locked herself into the bathroom with her dad's AR-15. She said she heard multiple men talking in the house. They tried to get into the bathroom, and that's when she dropped the bolt of AR into battery, making a loud metallic sound, unmistakably lethal. This scared them away without anyone being hurt. I felt bad for her as she was a couple of years younger than me, but I was glad she had means of defending herself from likely the same people who tried to break into my house. I love my parents. I really do. So don't take this post as bad parenting. I know they really loved me a lot. I wish they didn't have me so late in their life. Growing up was hard for me. I was a latchkey kid. You know, the kid who wear keys around her neck. My parents loved me. They really did. I know, they just didn't raise me. I have always been afraid of dark. I used to being left home a lot. I got used to leaving the lights on. Every single light switch, I would make sure all the lights are on. Every single light switch, I would make sure all the lights are on. My parents yelled at me a lot, saying our home looked like a landing strip. But I swear, if you didn't keep them on, there was something lurking in the shadows waiting for me. Even being 23, I will walk the hall and turn on the lights, but it seems like my parents don't really care and turn them right off when I walk away. I go to school online and don't have any friends, so I don't leave the house at all. I had a boyfriend, but he think it was sane for a girl my age to be home alone this much and never go outside. He broke up with me because he thought I was crazy. I had a great relationship with my friends though. They gave me reasons to stay inside all the time. My mom was a neat freak. She was always cleaning when she was home and not away on business trip. My mom went on to amazing countries. She has seen it all. But when she did clean, she would hide things. Like one time I left my ring in the bathroom. The next day, she cleaned and they were missing. She couldn't remember where she put them. Months later, sometime they would pop up in the weirdest place. For example, my ring popped up in the front lawn. She can be so silly. Unlike my mom, I was a complete slob. I leave my laundry in the basket. I have dirty dishes piling up on my desk and some empty cans of sodas on my nightstand. As a kid, since my parents weren't around much, I lived by my own rules. I didn't know about cleaning. I barely know how to take a shower. It wasn't until I was 13 how to use a washing and a drying machine. I haven't cleaned my room in a month. It started to get this weird smell. My dad was always really quiet. He never really talked. We normally exchange few words a day like, "How was your work?" or "How did your day go?" But as quiet he was during the day, he was always up late talking to my mom. I remember him mumbling something in the other room around 1 in the morning. I swear he didn't like me much because I was a girl. I knew he preferred boys. I've been home alone for a couple of months now. Almost feel like a year went by. My parents are both retired and they have been on this vacation trip. I know they loved me. They always told me they loved me. I just don't understand why they left me home by myself for so long. I wish they would have taken me with them. I think they miss me. My family has asked me where they are. They aren't answering their phone. I wish my parents didn't leave me home for so long. I feel like I'm going crazy in silence. I hear footsteps in the dark and door closing. I still hearing mumbling in the dark. Good thing I can keep the lights on all night. I can't wait for them to get home. Sometimes it feels like they are still here with me. Maybe I should get a roommate to fill the void. What do you guys think?